present is the closest thing to eternity, but when is the present anyway? When does the present start or end? Present comes from praesens, an old Latin term that describes this moment, the now. This one word stretched the human imagination by attempting to mark where we are in the possible infinity of time. Though this is what we have come to utilize in modernity, the Italians were not the first to attempt this great feat. The Greeks were far ahead in this concept of wrapping an inordinate amount of knowledge into one word. They had a word in a similar vein to praesens called aion, or as it's better known today as an aeon, which has come to be understood as an indefinite or infinite amount of time. This belief was largely influenced by biblical translations of this word into eternal, as in eternal life. Modern scholasticism is slightly torn, however, between whether it is meant to describe the entirety of a thing's existence, as in the age of the Romans, or if it's meant to represent the quality of life the thing experiences. Skip forward a few thousand years and modern man will not have anything to do with either of these deadly philosophical words. The acceptance of one's status in the great timeline has been under attack for decades. Between industrialization, free markets, new generations of people and technology, believing where you are is good or okay, let alone acknowledging it, just doesn't happen anymore. Colleges have now been offering classes on mindfulness and meditation to combat this problem. The problem here doesn't just refer to the loneliness epidemic, but to the creative deprivation we have been experiencing for equally as long. You may have heard it said, when something is free, you're the product. In this aion, the creators have found it easier to leverage your natural inclination to focus too much on your past or your future for gain, and so they have. Once unplugged, most of us find our greatest inspiration in shower thoughts. Why is it that in the bathroom, where our lowest level tasks happen, we think of new beats, businesses, ways we could have handled things differently? It's because we have finally allowed ourselves to be bored. In a similar way that through baptism one is immersed and brought up into new life, so too is being immersed in the silence and solitude that leads up to creativity. If only we could recognize the matrix we are in and turn away from distractions for even 10 minutes of genuine silence. In those first few minutes, you think of all of the monkey brain, as the Buddha describes it, tasks that you need or want to do and write them down to address later. Then you sit appreciating life at a different pace than what you were 5 minutes ago. If you are part of the few who actually try this, and part of the few who don't make up some excuse for why it didn't work even though you tried it in a distracting space like your car, then you may have experienced one of three things. One, when you were silent, past situations came to mind and you began to linger on them. When this happens, it could be called processing. Processing is when you take a past situation and relive it in a safe environment where you can freely experience and express the emotions associated with that situation. The second possible outcome is when you were silent, past situations came to mind and you set them aside for a later time until all had passed and you were now left with no more thoughts to be handled, in which case there was only silence. When this happens, it can be called meditation. Meditation is when you silence most external and internal noises and finally become still in such a way that can be quite literally healing and rejuvenative. The third outcome when you were silent is past situations came to mind as before and you sat them aside as before for a later time until all had passed, and now came a flood of questions about yourself, the world around you, and how you interact with it. When this happens, it can be called creativity. These three ways of sitting with your boredom address in the healthiest of ways your past through processing, your present through meditation, and your future through creativity. In the book 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman, he spends the first half of the book talking about his personal achievements as the foremost expert at time management. It was literally his full-time job. The last half is him taking that credibility and telling you to chill out. He says things just take the time that they take, the inclination to continue to creep up on the back bumper of the person in front of you at the stoplight is so silly, as it means that once the light turns green, you technically have to wait longer for the person to get a little bit ahead of you before you can start to go yourself. You cannot make things go faster than they can go. You cannot change what has already passed, and you must accept its current effects upon your life. In other words, when we attempt and reach into the future or the past, it leads us into moving slower in the present and prevents us from truly living our lives today. On the contrary, when we accept and live in the present, not getting hung up on the constant noise, we counterintuitively move faster because we are the closest to the infinite that we can get this side of death. In a sense, when we truly experience our own aion instead of trying to control it, we can learn easier those things that we need to learn, better cement the times worth remembering, and by all other measures, compound the growth of each moment into the next. Ultimately, boredom is not bondage, it's a blessing.